Good evening. I'm Ryan Doyle, in for Michael Corrin tonight on The Arena. The concept of self-protection here in Canada has always been puzzling and frustrating to me. How far you can go as a citizen to protect your property, your family, or yourself from the threat of harm has seemingly been mired in laws with many shades of gray. The latest case to enter the legal gray area of self-protection is that of a 24-year-old Ontario man who now faces 2 charges after he used bear spray to fend off a man who was trying to mug him in the streets last Thursday. You heard me correctly. The victim is the one being charged. William Cunningham was walking down the street minding his own business in the middle of the afternoon. That's when another man allegedly tried to grab him and demanded cash. In my mind, Cunningham was lucky enough to have a can of bear spray and a folding knife in his possession. And he was smart enough to use them against an attacker that was trying to do him harm. Cunningham told police he defended himself by squirting bear spray in the would-be robber's face and then fled the area. This should have been an open and shut case, one where the attacker gets charged and the victim is applauded for being brave enough to defend themselves by all means available. However, here in Canada, it would seem we have such a craving to be fair that we time and time again put the good guys and the bad guys on equal footing. There was the high-profile case in Toronto where Lucky Moose grocery store owner David Chen and 2 employees apprehended a thief after he returned to the store. The 3 men were charged with kidnapping, carrying a dangerous weapon, which was a box cutter, assault, and forcible confinement in the case. The accused thief, meanwhile, pleaded guilty to robbing the store and was sentenced to just 30 days in jail. It was also the case of an Ontario man escorting his girlfriend to her home in 2011 when he discovered signs of entry to her house and, fearing for the woman's mother that was sleeping inside, went on a search for intruders. He then found a man hiding in his house. An ensuing struggle left the intruder bleeding from stab wounds, but the boyfriend was charged with aggravated assault, punishable by 14 years in prison. The intruder, on the other hand, who had convictions for robbery, assault, and theft, was sentenced to just 20 months in jail. These 3 stories, and many others across the country, share a disturbing commonality. Not one of these individuals asked to be made victims, yet found themselves in trouble with the law for trying to do their best to get out of the situation. The Harper government introduced a bill a few years back designed to help clear up some of these gray areas. And while that's a start, it needs to go further. If someone attacks you in the street, you should never have to worry in the back of your mind as to whether or not you are using too much force to protect yourself. If someone tries to rob a store, the store owner should be able to use whatever weapon they have behind the counter to eliminate the threat of being robbed. And if somebody breaks into your house, the law should clearly give you the power to defend your property and your family. It is about time we stopped giving criminals the upper hand and started shifting the power back to innocent people to protect themselves.
Oh my God.
The right to bear spray, as you just saw. It's an interesting discussion. A man in Peterborough, Ontario, spraying down a would-be robber, assailant, call him what you will, that was trying to take money off the gentleman. It brings up a bigger question, of course, of self-defense and what you're allowed to do as a Canadian that's just trying to live your life, and you might find yourself victimized. Crime specialist Ross McLean is going to join us to talk about all of those things. Let's start off with the bear spray part of it all. You know, people who are living in the city of Toronto or, you know, a major urban place will think to themselves, why would you have bear spray? There's a good need for it in a lot of different places.
There's a great need for the bear spray in a lot of places. Even up in Peterborough where this happened, the police up there have shot bears. They've chased bears out of town. Bears have broken into homes. Homeowners have said, I'm going to get a shotgun now that this bear is broken into my home. So in many parts of Canada, bear attacks are a reality.
Yeah, so the idea of carrying this is not something that is all that uncommon for somebody.
It's not uncommon and it's not illegal. Bear spray is legal in Canada for use on bears. You're allowed to have it. They even tell you on different ministry websites to have it and how to use it for bears.
Now, see, in this instance, I can't blame this guy. If the allegations are true and this individual was trying to take his money and he had a foldable knife and he had bear spray, okay, well, he didn't stab the guy. I mean, certainly that's got to be looked into here, the fact that he decided just to use the bear spray, but he was trying to defend himself. And so many times over, we have this problem where we just don't know where the line is.
Well, the line, you know, what's funny about where that line is, I would encourage all the viewers to look at Section 25 of the Criminal Code. That's where it talks about what force you're allowed to use, Ryan. to defend yourself. And it's the exact same paragraph that deals with what police officers are allowed to do. However, we've seen in case after case after case, it's used differently against citizens than it is against the police. Had that been, let's say, a police officer walking along as a dupe trying to sucker someone in to rob him, and that mugger came along and robbed him, and the policeman pepper sprayed him, the officer's not going to get charged. That's a reasonable use of force. So we really need to have a look at what's in the community's best interest here.
All right, when we talk about the officers themselves, they had come across this instance where there's an individual who has tried to rob somebody. There's a citizen who, as I said in the intro, was doing nothing other than just being themselves, living their life. What does an officer do in that circumstance? How do they proceed to get to the point where the victim gets charged?
Well, what happens here typically is you have the police, to get someone on carrying a knife or carrying a bear spray, will ask the question, why do you have this with you? Mm-hmm. And if the answer is anything other than, I carry it just to protect myself against bears, if you say I carry it to protect myself against muggers, then there's the intention being shown that you'd use it as a weapon. And that's when you can get charged out of your own mouth for saying something.
Okay, when we talk about there's two men involved in this case. Is there a difference if it's a woman? Because women carry mace. I know women who carry some sort of,
In the U.S., not in Canada. You can't carry it in Canada.
But there are women who do it here. They carry it because they're afraid, because they don't want to walk around, fearing for their lives, knowing that there are people out there that might sexually assault them or, God forbid, rape them. I mean, they should have a right to do so. So you're telling me a woman would be charged if they used mace against somebody who was trying to, cause them harm?
Absolutely. If they said I carried it to protect myself from being sexually assaulted, the police could charge. And as I say, they could charge in this one or not charge in it. And you raise the point. I think that we should look at actually legalizing pepper spray for citizens to be able to carry. And you know what? You can go out and get the exact same training that the police get. Go get the exact same training they have from their instructors. Carry it, and then have to account for your use of it, same as the police do.
All right, let's talk about the people who are laying the charges then, and then the people who have to go through court. I mean, in this circumstance, it would seem that you look at this as a prosecutor and you say, we're not going to go any further with this. This is somebody who is just trying to protect themselves. But case after case, we see citizens having to spend their good money to defend themselves.
Look, I want to start seeing this entire justice system start representing community values. And you raise an excellent point here. Look, if that mugger had gotten a hold of this guy, what would he get? $6,200 if he just left the banking machine?
Right.
Well, guess what? He didn't get that. But now the Crown's going to mug him for $20,000, $30,000 in defense charges for defending himself from this when he was the victim. I mean, I'd like to know where the public interest is in really charging this man and seeing him go through $20,000 of expenses, rather than just saying, you know what, this one isn't in the public interest to proceed. Say it now before he has to retain the lawyer.
All right, then why do they not do that? Why does the Crown decide to, who are these people, for the record? I mean, that's, you talk about protecting a community. Who are these people that are supposed to be laying charges against the bad guys and saying to the good guys, no, you have a right to not be victimized. You have a right to defend yourself.
Here in Canada, nobody could name a crown in this city. Anywhere across the province can people tell you the names of the crowns. In the United States, they can, because they elect...
I see their commercials all the time. I could name probably some of those people.
They elect the prosecutors down there. And if those prosecutors aren't doing the job that the community wants, guess what? They're voted out of office. You have a say down there by having a vote. Now, I'm not saying we need to go the U.S. way, but where is the accountability here? Where is the accountability for sometimes when the Crown proceeds with charges that they know are going to get tossed eventually, and when they don't proceed with ones, when people wonder, why aren't they? Just like with the OPP with the natives a little while ago. It was in the public interest not to proceed with that.
Mm-hmm. And they made that call, and nobody got to react accordingly. I mean, that's one of those things that's frustrating to people. The other part, the gray area of the law. The idea of using words like, you're using force that is just enough. I mean, this kind of thing is just nonsense. If I'm somebody that's terrified for my life, somebody's in my home, or somebody's trying to rob me on the street, give me some confidence in my actions and let me defend myself.
Well, I mean, this is key. What we're seeing now is even legislation is moving that way. We saw with the Lucky Moose law.
That's right.
Right? The legislation and the politicians are trying to say, look, people are entitled to live their life and not be afraid of violence. And you know what? Not be afraid of the state coming in and prosecuting the heck out of you because you're trying to go on with your life when a criminal comes in to invade it, Ryan.
Yeah, and this is the thing that politicians are starting to understand, but it's about time we all got together and said, we have a right not to be victims, and I think that's the message we need going forward. Ross, appreciate it.
Thank you.